out in their last head-to-head. McDonald and Martin arrived to RTE in the last few moments.
I'm delighted to be here and I'm looking forward to the debate. So let's see how we get on.
Good evening. Looking forward to an enlightening debate, and particularly on subjects like health, climate change, maybe even education, which really hasn't got the attention that it deserves so far in this campaign. Thank you very much indeed.
The Irish government's advising citizens whose presence in China is not essential to prepare to leave the country. The Department of Foreign Affairs also says anyone with underlying medical conditions shouldn't travel there. It comes after the National Public Health Emergency Team met this afternoon amid the ongoing coronavirus outbreak. It says the respondent with the Irish Independent, Ralph Riegel, says the retrial was ordered over issues with their self-defence plea.
There was significant forensic and general circumstantial evidence against the father and daughter. However, the two judges that upheld the appeal essentially said that the issues involved tended to go towards the defendant's ability to mount a defence of self-defence.
The National Car Testing Service says underbody vehicle inspections will resume this week at 8 test centres. It's after the use of lifts at all sites was suspended last week following concerns over cracking. The 8 centres to resume inspections include Galway, Cork, Limerick and Letterkenny after new lifts were delivered. That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA, you can find our lowest car insurance price online, guaranteed.
Dry and cold tonight with a widespread frost, mist and fog also in places. Lowest temperatures of -2 to +1 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game? It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
OK, Joe Molloy here, Nathan Murphy here. Football Show coming at you. We have Dermot Corrigan from Madrid joining us to tell us about, well, Zinedine Zidane, it turns out, he's a very good manager. We need to just accept this and move on. He has turned the ship around at Real Madrid with no new players, effectively. They beat Atletico at the weekend 1-0. They're 3 points clear, top of La Liga. They are defensively brilliant, solid, everybody working very hard. And Manchester City, they're coming at you.
Yeah, it is really interesting how he's managed to turn it round. Suddenly, Karim Benzema is in the form of his life, a real leader in this team. Has kind of done it as well without Luka Modric being the best midfielder in world football. Yeah. Has been able to rotate him a little bit. And the young players who come through, who, whenever players come through Real Madrid at 17, 18, you wonder how long it's going to last, but they do look like they're the real deal. And so many of those players have 3-4 Champions League medals at this stage. Like, it is going to be that clash of this sort of fabled European experience that Manchester City don't have, that Paris Saint-Germain don't have, that you go out at the same stage every season. That is there something about European football somehow City don't know? Some dirty tricks that Real Madrid are just well aware of.
You would think Pep would have told them by now. But here we are. So Dermot Corrigan's going to fill us in, and also what's going to happen to Diego Simeone. Atletico effectively asset stripped, the team anyway, whatever about the stadium, which is magnificent. The team asset stripped, and Simeone is, well, humming and hawing to a point. He is the highest paid manager in world football, which is a compensation of sorts, i.e. financial. But not in great shape at the moment. They are 13 points off Real Madrid. So that is on the way. In the meantime, you mentioned the kids there at Real Madrid, the kids at Liverpool, 0-0 against Shrewsbury. Now, excitingly, it's half-time.
Yes.
So, for all we know, Jurgen Klopp is currently speaking via speakerphone to the dressing room.
Probably asking why this game involving the European champions and the runaway Premier League leaders can't be found anywhere on television, anywhere in the world, it seems.
Well, it's on his laptop, so the word is it's been connected to his laptop via LFC TV, their live feed. This was Neil Critchley talking today. He said that when this happened against Aston Villa, wasn't it, in the League Cup, that Klopp spoke to the team at half-time, so they're expecting the same again. Shrewsbury, by the way, are not pleased because Liverpool have sold their entire allocation of tickets, reduced to £15 for adults, £1 for juniors tonight into that game. So they reckon it's cost Shrewsbury, a League One club, over €500,000.
Well, also, the BBC are currently showing Newcastle against Oxford.
2-0 Newcastle, we should say.
I would imagine that the BBC would have been showing Liverpool if it was a full strength Liverpool, but obviously took Jurgen Klopp at his word and thought there's going to be no giant killing here, and if there is, it won't be of any interest.
The newspaper I was reading today, excuse me, I forget which one it was, but it was going through managers who've missed other games, included Alex Ferguson when his son was getting married in South Africa. He was in Cape Town. But Edgar Davids at Barnet was the one. So as part of his contract, the reports go, he had a clause which meant if there was an overnight stay required beforehand, then he didn't have to be manager that day. That's how desperate Barnet were to have Edgar Davids, which was a classic one. And then Neil Warnock at Leeds United, he was sick one night, Leeds at Ellen Road against Birmingham City. So he listened on the radio, and then at half-time he got on the phone and gave instructions as to what should happen. So there we are. There is precedent, Nathan. That's all I'm saying. There's precedence here for Jurgen Klopp.
But there were reasons behind all of those.
Oh, I know.
Like, Edgar Davids is a superstar.
Yeah.
How can he be expected to do such things? Like, Barnet are probably going to be staying at a Holiday Inn. He's thinking, not really for me. Alex Ferguson was a strange situation where his son was getting married and they had arranged for the wedding to be during an international break, and then they changed the international break, played all the games midweek, and there was a full round of Premier League games at the weekend.
It's hard to change a wedding in South Africa at short notice.
Well, how committed are you to the cause?
Yeah.
You know? You're a manager of Manchester United. But there's no reason Jurgen Klopp shouldn't be there. Maybe he has sat down with Michael Edwards, he's sat down with the ownership, they've looked at how this season has gone, one of the great seasons. He said, I'm at my best when I can recharge my batteries. I'm mentally destroyed. We've been all over the world. I've given absolutely everything to this. I'm going to switch off for 3 or 4 days. I'm going to come back better than ever.
He has leverage right now. There's not much they can say.
It just seems... there's no question it's disrespectful. It's absolutely disrespectful.
Well, we are where we are. Liverpool 0, Shrewsbury 10 0. Derby County 3-1 up in Northampton. I know you're eagerly awaiting that result.
Well, Derby
Cardiff
play Manchester United.
Who do?
Derby play Manchester United in the next round.
Okay.
Which will be Wayne Rooney taking on Manchester United, where apparently he did quite well once upon a time.
Yeah. Cardiff are 2-0 up in Reading, and it's Birmingham City 0, Coventry City 1 after an hour.
Interesting thing about that, Joe.
Go on.
The first game was played at St Andrews, and the replays played at St Andrews, because they both played St Andrews.
Some of the narratives here.
These are the big talking points that get you going on a Tuesday night.
Oh, I can't believe we're still here. So, West Ham. I want to ask you about this because I still haven't been to this stadium. So I thought this was interesting. In the midst of what is a crisis on the field, David Moyes does not seem to have been able to turn this thing around. Even Pat Nevin, who's very friendly with David Moyes last night, was saying, look, it's going to be really tough. They have Liverpool and Man City on the way. I think Southampton is a winnable game, and then they have a glut of other really tough games. So things are not looking good for West Ham. But they have confirmed plans to install 2 new tiers of seats closer to the pitch. So basically, as we know, the West Ham fans hate the stadium in pretty much every way. It detracts from the atmosphere. So the club has said 2 new lower tier stands that will bring fans closer to the pitch, many by more than 4 metres. And then, interestingly as well, and I think this is a good point, along with the stand being squared off in line with the more traditional football stadium configuration behind the goals. Because it is always a strange one when you see that circle, oval-shaped London Stadium there. So, it's something. Supporters have been giving out as well. It's the distance between the seats and the pitch way too big. Transport to the stadium is bad. Toilet and catering facilities in some areas not satisfactory. The whole thing seems to be a bit of a mess. Is this ground as bad as they're all making out when you're there?
Yes. So, I think we both experienced the Olympic Stadium in London 2012.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere was just electric. Like, the one thing you remember was this sort of Mexican wave of noise as the athletes would go around the track. And
it's funny, actually, now that you mentioned it, being there, I never thought too much about the green part in the middle. It was very far away. I wasn't too bothered with it. You're looking at the track. It's like
then the javelin is on when
a little bit, but
you're watching the big screen.
Usain Bolt's run the 100 metres.
And the first time I was back then was 2015 World Cup. Ireland played Italy there at the Rugby World Cup. And I was sat in the commentary box, and you're a million miles away from the pitch. And when you're watching a rugby match at the best of times, and there's a scrum over on the far side in the corner, not a clue what was going on. And I was thinking, there's no way this is going to stay like this for when West Ham arrive. You couldn't watch a football match in this sort of arena. And sure enough, back opening weekend, it's the exact same. From the top tier, the distance to the far wing, I'm sure is the furthest distance of any team in the Premier League.
Okay, so that's not going to be fixed by these lower tiers.
Hard to see how it can be. But then there's the added problem of if you're on those lower tiers, you're down at ground level, that it's impossible to get any real sense of where players are on the pitch because you're so far back. They've obviously figured out some sort of a way of improving this. How it, like, aesthetically, I wonder how it'll look. Maybe they don't care at this stage. Maybe they just want to appease the supporters who obviously were sold this dream of this brilliant new stadium and have been sold a bit of a dud. But what is West Ham? Like, West Ham are a mid-table team. That's where they want to be. That's where they're always going to be. They're never going to be a Champions League outfit unless Saudi billionaires come in and buy the club. They are hit and miss in the transfer market. They spend money ridiculous ways. They have huge wage bills. They've talented players there, like Issa Diop at centre-back is somebody you could see ending up at a big club. Anderson in midfield is brilliant at times. They end up with the odd striker here and there who'll score a few goals. But you also even get the sense, like they've no great history of success, despite the West Ham way, like FA Cups in when the 80s. That they, their supporters like to be the underdog of, we're not Tottenham, we're not Arsenal, we're not Chelsea. We're rough and ready. Whereas actually putting them in this plush surrounding of, well, we're a bit more cosmopolitan. We're just like those guys. It's not really West Ham.
Hasn't quite fit.
No, all right, you don't want to go back to some of the bad stuff of the 80s, but you can still have a bit of an edge in the ground. You still have a bit of an atmosphere where it's not nice for visiting supporters. That's the nicest trip. You can go shopping in Stratford in the shopping centre for an hour before the match. Any amount of nice restaurants when you step outside. That's not West Ham.
No, it's true. Well, they're trying to sort out the situation, but it does seem like they're just stuck with it. And most likely, I mean, they kind of like, if you look at the table now, so...
Well, they're third from bottom.
In the relegation
zone.
You
would wonder...
With a tough run of fixtures coming up. They're going to lose their next two. Liverpool and Man City next up.
And you would have to wonder what would happen to that club if they were relegated. Because everything over the last 4 years since they moved into that stadium is... We're looking up, we're no longer going to be a yo-yo club. We're a team that'll be fighting for Europe and contending in Europe.
Well, the Di Canio team that went down was far superior to this one, so it's very possible.
And it is hard right now to see who's going to score the goals. They just signed Jared Bowen from Hull, who's been scoring goals in the Championship, but West Ham's history is littered with strikers who scored goals in the Championship who didn't step up. Robert Snodgrass has a bit of quality, like Lanzini's constantly been injured, Yarmolenko's constantly been injured. There's definitely enough quality there compared to some of the sides around them, but it's just so toxic. Like David Moyes doesn't seem to inspire confidence anywhere. And I know when he came initially, there was talk of we're going about things differently now in the transfer market. We're not going to go for those overpaid superstars. We're going to develop players. Like all that goes out the window if they get relegated.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. I just wanted to mention something. I was reading a good piece in The Guardian today about PSG and Neymar and Mbappe. So initially I was looking into the Neymar situation because he's out of PSG's squad for their league match at Nantes tonight with a rib injury, but had found time to celebrate his 28th birthday. It was a big Parisian event, big nightclub. Thomas Tuchel. Is it the best way to prepare for a match? No, clearly not. Is it the worst thing in the world? No. Neymar turned up all white, looking very dapper. And I thought, it's just another Neymar ruling the club and not all that interested story. But it was more the Mbappe situation which then caught my eye. PSG, by the way, are on 55 points in the league. Marseille are on 43, so they're 12 points clear, which by Premier League standards is positively a title race at this stage. But Mbappe, so 5-0 up against Montpellier at the weekend. Mbappe's already scored a goal. This is PSG's 9th game in 4 weeks. And they've got Borussia Dortmund on the horizon. So Thomas Tuchel decides to take Mbappe off. It was a good idea and it was necessary, said the piece I was reading for sure. So Mbappe is very frustrated walking off. He walks off, he tries to bypass Thomas Tuchel on the touchline. Tuchel then tries to reason with the player and then Mbappe attempts to ignore him and then starts talking back. They have a little chat and then Mbappe walks towards the bench muttering to himself and starts just, waving his hand over his shoulder at Tuchel, kind of dismissing him. And then after the match, he refuses all requests for selfies or supporters, makes his way to his private box. Tuchel said the incident, not good. I'm not angry, I'm sad. Angel Di Maria says, there are boys on the bench who want to come on. He needs to get that. So there's just this sense that, this thing is coming to a head. And against Montpellier in December, Mbappe did the same thing. completely ignored Tuchel. The obvious conclusion to draw is he's looking at Neymar, he's looking how this guy's going about his business. The same way people talk about the Manchester United dressing room lacking role models. He's got Neymar as his. But what was interesting was Adam White and Eric Devon in Get French Football News talked about Mbappe generally. So he sounds there like not a great fella. And, you know, there's certain things he does which would feed into that. So he said, quote, he was now a superstar. Maybe you shouldn't say that about yourself. But they say he always comes across as a really good fella rather than the sulking youngster they saw at the weekend. So his Instagram account, for instance, shows him to be socially conscious. He talks about the Australian bushfire crisis, saving Amazon rainforests. He contributed €60,000 to help find the Nance forward Salah and the pilot in that plane crash. So he gave €60,000 there. He donated all £275,000 of his match fees from France's World Cup 18 win to charity. And so they say, as a result, the darkening of his mood on the pitch is a little jarring. He's out of there is the kind of conclusion. And it mightn't be the worst thing if he gets out of there, because PSG are just running away with the league every year. He's got Neymar hanging around. He's too powerful almost for PSG.
Well, he is the next on the list after Messi and Ronaldo.
Yeah.
So the opportunity is going to come up in the next couple of years to be the best player in the world. When you saw the footage initially, it's almost seemed like a Pep Guardiola with Raheem Sterling coming off the pitch and Sterling not happy and he's very much on his shoulders. But then you realise it's a totally different dynamic because
Guardiola was in charge.
Mbappe is the one with all the power here, and if Paris Saint-Germain get beaten by Borussia Dortmund next month or whoever before Champions League semi-final or final, he's gone. In fact, unless they win it, he's probably gone in the summer anyways. He's still only 21. And what he's done has been unbelievable. And every time you see him, like covering Paris Saint-Germain in some of their Champions League games this year, they came off the bench, scored a hat-trick in a match when like there was no real quality there at all. Like, you look at their midfield, it's not a Champions League winning midfield you would expect. He is the X factor. He's the star. And it did feel maybe it was a bit contrived. I need to just start ruffling a few feathers here, just to let people know that I'm not quite happy, that this isn't going to come out of the blue. You would still expect he'll end up at Real Madrid or Barcelona, but there's been an awful lot of speculation linking him with Liverpool over the last few months.
Right.
You haven't heard this?
No. I tend not to put too much stock into this.
And like the very fact that it's hard to... When was the last time, as great as the Premier League has become, a top 5 world player has moved to a Premier League club?
It's always Real Madrid.
Just doesn't happen. It's always Real Madrid.
How much would he cost
Barcelona? Like you're talking 200 million. You would expect.
Yeah.
Which just doesn't seem to fit in. Maybe you sell Mo Salah in the summer for 150 and you get a 21-year-old who can do the next 5 years.
Would you get 150 for Mo? You get close to 100.
Like, imagine trying to rule that Paris Saint-Germain dressing room where you have Mbappe, Neymar. They brought Icardi in during the summer, who everything we saw at Inter Milan was that he's a complete lunatic.
Yeah.
Had all sorts going on off the field.
Yeah.
Liked to party a little bit as well. Poor old Edinson Cavani just there as the good guy.
I know, not being allowed to do anything. So it's a nightmare for Tuchel. I mean, like, you've got Neymar off to his birthday, not even thinking about rehabilitating. The last time he had a birthday, he took 2 days and missed training. And then you've Mbappe just starting to act out a little bit. So that's where PSG are at the moment.
Well, he's been trying to find a way as well to get all 4 of them into the team at times, because maybe he's just looked at this and thought, like, defensively, all right, they've got Thiago Silva, Kimpembe, maybe we can just about do enough, but in midfield, we've no quality. So let's get rid of some of them, go all out attack, and somehow pray to God that if we score 4, the opposition will only score 3.
So I was about to tell you Jurgen Klopp would be texting Neil Critchley furiously because they'd gone 1-0 up against Liverpool, but that goal has been ruled out. So it's still 0-0 there. And Newcastle are 2-0 up away to Oxford. One other story to bring people today. I'm interested to see how much traction this gets. Now, I dare say if there wasn't an election on and there was a quasi-permanent minister for sport, that minister would be asked about this, and this might have the potential to become a trickier subject for the government. Basketball Ireland have come out and talked about the double standards that the FAI receive money given their predicament, and that when Basketball Ireland were in a similar position back in 2008 when they went 1.5 million euro when they ran into financial difficulties, they were in a black debt of hole, they say, and financial penalties totaling 1.5 million euros. So they were in trouble back then. This is the Basketball Ireland statement today. So they've kind of put this out there in a big way. And their basic argument is, at our darkest time, a similar agreement to that which was awarded last week to the FAI would have considerably changed the trajectory of Basketball Ireland and would have proven to be a lifeline. Instead, he says, difficult period, no financial assistance, and forced to call an immediate halt to our international team programmes and to make half of our employees redundant, which is fairly significant, obviously, and to reduce debt. Since then, Basketball Ireland has turned its position around completely, and on it goes to say, we still haven't received full funding back to what it was cut from back in 2008. Bernard O'Byrne here, formerly of the FAI, obviously is now with Basketball Ireland. And so, he in particular, you would think, has a foot in both camps and would have been watching events very closely. I mean, they have a point, of course they do. And you would like to say there's an endless pot of money for everything, and you would just be absolutely fair to everyone in the country and every organisation in the country. Sadly, it's not the reality. It's the reality when you're trying to choose between the health service and prioritising another aspect of Irish life, which might feel hard done by comparison with the health service. I mean, like, the interesting line that jumped out at me there is where he said the Basketball Ireland had to halt their international programmes. And I don't know the nitty-gritty of that, but like, you probably just can't let that happen. If you're the government in 2020, you can't let the FAI fall into a position where the international fixtures or programmes grind to a halt and you cause international embarrassment, and the team don't fulfil their fixtures. Like, it's rotten and it's not fair. And yet I understand why they've certainly bailed out the FAI, even though they don't use that term. Whatever about the treatment of Basketball Ireland, that may be a point. Certainly their treatment of the FAI, if we're focusing on that initially, is hard to quibble with because the alternative was so horrific.
I think people are conflicted, though, about this bailout, whatever you want to call it, for the FAI. Basketball Ireland had to suffer for a decade because of what went on, whereas the FAI, it seems, are somehow... a year later, within a year, going to somehow emerge from this, which is brilliant in a lot of ways, because what's the alternative? As you say, worst case scenario, what do we want? 100 people to lose their jobs. And we go, great, that the FAI is sorted out, people have been punished.
League of Ireland goes.
Or you provide a way forward. It was maybe the celebratory tone, I think, that jarred with a lot of people last week. This is manna from heaven. A sort of, we're back, Irish football's back. Whereas a lot of people want to know, well, who's going to pay the price for this? Who ultimately is going to pay the price for this? And there's investigations obviously still ongoing, so people may well pay the price. But
in the meantime,
do we just all kick on now with Irish football and pretend none of this ever happened? Maybe we do. Like, maybe that is what should happen. Maybe that was a time in the past and now we all kick on and are positive. But I think that jars with a lot of people.
It does, for sure. Absolutely. There's a lot of people who feel that they've got off scot-free here. We're going to take a short break. So Liverpool still 0-0 with Shrewsbury. Newcastle beating Oxford. Next up, Dermot Corrigan joins us from Madrid.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
The Pat Kenny Show.
On tomorrow's programme, on Taoiseach Leo Varadkar in studio, a creche crisis as parents are forced to choose between childcare and their jobs. David Norris on surviving cancer, and of course, the breaking news.
The Pat Kenny Show.
With Jaguar.
Tomorrow morning at 9.
On News Talk.
Relax this evening and visit itsforwomen.ie. Great value car insurance for those on the go. Get the cover you need day or night at itsforwomen.ie. It's time to own it.
Little boxes on the hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on the hillside, little boxes all the same. There's a pink one and a green one and a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky and they all look just the same.
Newness and Duke, don't be just the same.
At Energia, we're proud to be the power behind Irish rugby and proud to keep bringing you great savings. To save the most, the best tactic is always to go direct to Energia. It's easier, quicker, and right now you can save up to €616 when you switch to Ireland's cheapest dual fuel bundle. Always play it direct. Go to energia.ie or call 1850 300 700. Energia, the power behind your savings. EAB €1,493 based on average annual usage. 12-month contract, discounted unit rate, standing charge, PSO levy and carbon tax, T's and C's and early termination fee apply. Valid from January 2020 and subject to change. Verification and T's and C's at energia.ie/EAB.